4 years, maybe super seniors here, maybe some of you it was 5 years, or 6, not calling you out if it has been. But yeah, we're at the end of college. I know some of you guys maybe are still graduating or have already graduated, which is great too. But what we're here to talk about and celebrate are those who are moving on. I'm sure you guys can think back to maybe the beginning of your Southern career, and it may have been pretty daunting. If you guys think back to the beginning of some of the semesters, right? You guys with me, like, was anyone freaking out like about persuasion and propaganda from like the first day you were here? Right? Like 20-page rhetorical criticism, how in the world, right? What about, how about anyone, comm research? Anyone freaking out about that? Okay, yeah. Comm research was another biggie. How about, I didn't have to do this one, but I've heard it might have been stressful for a few. TV news production. Anyone scared about being the anchor? All right, Jana, hold your hand up proudly.
You're all lying if you're not raising your hands.
Right? Yeah, okay, how about mag and feature? That 1,500-word article just hung over my head. Like, I was like, no way. It's like you can choose. I left that one for the very, very end, right? So, you guys can relate. At the beginning of the semester, before we started, it was daunting. Like, things were scary. College was big. But now we're on the other side, and it's actually kind of fun looking back and being like, oh yeah, in my day, like, you know, I wrote a great rhetorical criticism, right? It's fun to be able to look back from where we came from and realize, you know, this semester, that semester wasn't quite as scary as we thought. Like, you just stepped into it, you took the knowledge that you'd been given from your teachers and you just did it, right? You just kind of started. Well, as I was thinking about what to talk about today, that was something that I really kept coming back to is, for those of us who are graduating, we're about to start really the biggest semester yet. And it's the biggest and longest and never-ending semester, which is life.
Amen.
I mean, for some of us it's grad school, maybe an internship, maybe a job, maybe no job. But whatever it is, we're about to start. And just like those other semesters, it may have seemed super daunting, but you just go, you start, you take the step, you take the skills that you know, and you move ahead. And you enjoy the ride. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Let's bow our heads really quick. Dear God, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for graduation. Thank you for life. Thank you for school. Thank you for friends. Please let your spirit and your angels come and rest with us for the next few minutes and just help us to listen and help just speak through me, whatever you want me to say. Go ahead, and I'm here. We love you so much. Amen. So I was in Egypt. I know a lot of you guys know that. No, this is not going to be a mission story. Don't worry, I'm not telling you to go out and be SMs because most of you are done. So no, this is not a mission story, but it was something that was big for me and impacted my life, and I'd like to share a few stories amongst other things with you guys. I was there, taught, all that kind of thing, but I also got to travel, which was really cool. Worked at an academy, so for our home leaves, we got to go all over. I mean, I lived an hour away from the pyramids, I lived 45 minutes away from the Nile. I went and camped on Mount Sinai and ate Big Franks at sunrise. That's the thing to do, right? You know, I was able to go all over the place, Luxor, Aswan, all the temples. And then one place that I'm going to tell you guys about, I actually got to go to the White Desert. Now that's not something you normally think of when you think Egypt, but it was the coolest. Like, it is basically these limestone pinnacles, and the entire desert is limestone sand, so it's white, just stark white. And then these huge limestone rocks have been worn away with the wind, and so they were like made of these big mushroom clouds, these big pinnacles, and we decided to go camping there. Why not? So, you know, we load into Jeeps. We have all the guy SMs, there's 3 of them, they crammed into the back into one Jeep, and then there was 4 girl SMs, we crammed into the back, and then we had our guides. So our guides jumped in, and there was 4 of them in front of us, like, so the 4 of us girls are sitting in the back row, and then the 4 big Egyptian men are crammed into the front, and we start on our journeys. And we're going along the road like normal. Oh, this is fun, camping in the White Desert, woohoo, we're SMs, we're living life. And then, like, they just turn off the road. Just no road, no path, just down into whatever. So you can imagine the 4 of us girls are like, what's what's he doing? Why are we going here? Is this the right way? He probably doesn't know where he's going. We should be helping him. We should get out a map and show him where to go. Like, we're just talking. And to my defense, we've been living in Egypt all year, surrounded by people who spoke Arabic and not English, so if you use big enough words or enough idioms, like off the top of my head, tip of your tongue, then people didn't understand what you were saying, because they didn't speak enough English. So we just got very used to speaking our minds in public and not worrying about it, because no one understood us. So we started speaking our minds. What are they doing? We're driving out. Now this is like, now we're like flying through the desert in Jeeps, just the middle of nowhere. Like, they could be taking us to the desert to kill us. They could be, I mean, mostly in jest. We were mostly joking, but we were still saying it. They can, what if they're taking us to blah, blah, blah. We're just 4 girls. What if the Jeep behind us leaves? What are we going to do? They're going to kill us. They don't know what they're doing. They're bad drivers. Oh, and we also didn't know Alec Jackson, SA president, he was in Egypt with us as well in the other car. And we didn't know, we found out later, he was doing the same thing. Like, they are such bad drivers. I would be such a better driver than this guy. Oh, what is he doing? Where are we going? And we just didn't think about the fact that, you know, we were speaking out loud. Well, we got to our destination after hours, and it was in the middle of nowhere, and I'm pretty sure we made some more comments about that. And then the fully turbaned, fully Egyptian garbed, Egypt through and through man turns around and in perfect English and a perfect British accent says, "We've reached our destination, please step out of the car." Yeah. Talk about embarrassing. Now, I could draw out like the whole gossip thing out of this and we could go that direction, but I'm actually taking this a different way. We were not enjoying the ride. We were too busy criticizing, making comments, being nervous, being scared, some in jest, some in reality. And we, instead of just sitting back and being like, this is the coolest, 2 hours in the middle of nowhere with the sun coming up over this white desert, we're like, oh, this, and this, and this. And we were focusing on what we were scared of, what we thought was stupid. I mean, Alec, too, the guy that was driving in his car, spoke perfect English as well. And we just concentrated on that for so long that we weren't enjoying the ride. Like, we weren't about what he's doing wrong and where he should be taking us and why are you doing this and why are you doing that. But you can sit back and just enjoy yourself. No matter, I mean, what that is. I don't know what it is. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's not a job. Are you going to sit back and be like, I'm going to work hard through what I have and enjoy the ride? You know, it's something to think of, to think about. And one verse that I want to bring up is Psalms 119, 105. And I know you guys know this verse. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path, right? Okay, we know it. It's easy. But one thing I want to point out is it says that thy word is a lamp unto my feet. Does that promise like a beam shooting across the path? What does that mean? A lamp unto my feet. He'll show the steps you have in front of you, not a crystal ball into the future. All right? So you know the exact steps you have, and you step out in faith, because again, in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, one of my favorite verses, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. So you acknowledge Him, you give it to Him, and then you worry about the step you're taking, and who cares about anything beyond that. And then last one in Psalm 32, 8, and this is a newer version, but I love the way it's stated. It says, the Lord says, I will guide you along the best pathway for your life. I will advise you and watch over you. Not just a pathway or, I'll choose it at some point. No, the best pathway. You will be guided, not just shown and go ahead of yourself. Step by step, He's going to walk with you down that path. And so why not kick back? You know, why not enjoy the scenery? Why not just like go out with a bang and be like, it does not matter what I'm doing, I'm with God and I'm good. I'm good. And I think that's something that, I do want to share another story from Egypt, I know, sorry. Like I said, not a mission talk, but something that was special to me. And it was one of those moments where I had that huge aha moment, and I finally realized it, and I have to remind myself all the time, because that's me, and do that. I forget lessons that I've learned. But some of you guys might actually know this story. I wrote about it for that 1,500-word paper in Nash's class. But it was for the ones that we had to write for Collins Magazine, so it's actually in there. But I want to tell it to some of you who haven't heard it maybe. I was an SM, I loved my year. That in itself is a whole other story about God leading. Like, I went through like 20 different places to get to where I got, and I was like, God, you don't even want me. You tell me to go, and now you want to give me a place? Anyways, it fell into my lap, it turned out good. Actually met my fiance there. We didn't date the whole time, and the same thing. On my birthday, I was like, God, I'm 21 and I don't even have a man, I don't know anything, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, hey, just wait, you're actually hanging out with him this whole year and getting to be friends. You'll find that once you go home, so just chill, Enjoy the journey, right? Anyways, like I said, that's a whole nother story. But the story I'm going to tell you about is, when I left Egypt, I actually talked to my principal. I was sad, I didn't want to leave them. But he said, you know what, let's plan on you coming back to do a week of prayer. And I was like, yes. Awesome, I'm there. And like, we weren't going to tell him just in case it didn't work out. We wanted it to be a surprise. And like, I was like, I am so equipped. This is the path I'm supposed to be on, because that was an area that had been lacking some of the Week of Prayer talks, because they would fly speakers in, or missionaries would come from other countries to speak. The problem was they didn't know the culture, they didn't do their research. Like, Egypt is a very modest culture. When I was there, I was just telling Dr. C, it was 115 the whole time, but I wore long sleeve shirts and long pants, It's very modest. Well, we had a speaker come and talk about purity and modesty. It was telling the girls not to wear short skirts and not to wear spaghetti straps. And I'm like, do you see who you're talking to? This is not lining up. So when he asked me to come, I was like, oh yeah, I am so ready for this. I'm so equipped. I know the students. I have a relationship. I'll come back and do a week of prayer. Like, I'm going to do God a service, I'm who he needs for this job, kind of a thing. So I was planning to do the week of prayer. Well, then in January, the revolution hit, and I'm sure you guys heard all about that, but that rocked their world. And I talked to my students, and they were just, it was huge. That's their life turned upside down. So I was like, okay, God, I'll put this into my plans for the week of prayer. I'll talk about like your freedom, and then relate it to like the freedom of the revolution. Like, look at me being such a good speaker and putting these two things together. Again, I'm like, I'm so yours, and you chose me for a reason. Anyways, yeah, not good. So I was like ready to go, thinking this is the path I'm supposed to be on. I'm good. I understand where I'm going, so we're good. Well, then it actually got down to March 31. And that's when we bought our tickets. Michael was going with me, and then Sarah Lukowski, my best friend. We were all SMs the year before. We all bought our tickets on March 31, and we were ready to go. We were ready to be used by God. Well, April 1st, it was a Friday, and I was about to go to Vespers, and Michael called me, and he says, have you checked your email? I said, no, and I think I had to do song service. So he said, don't check it now, go enjoy song service, or go do song service at Vespers, call me as soon as you get back to your room. So I called, and I logged in, and the email that popped up, the title was Nahed died today. Now, Nahed was a senior that year. She was a student that I was very, very close to. She was a Sudanese girl, tall, beautiful, talented, athletic, loved by everyone, just such good nature. She was a student dean. She was, Krista, another SM, had such a good relationship. She had given her a Bible with her name on it. She was searching, she was a good girl. And she had fallen asleep and never woken up. And yeah, that was big. That was big. I just was hit. How am I going to go talk to these students about a God of love who just killed their friend? That's their thinking. And it rocked me. But we took our talks and we kind of, I'm just like, God, okay, no, I do need to depend on you for this. And we kind of rearranged them and we made it work. And then we were getting excited again. We were going to go, support them. The students still didn't know we were coming. And we actually got down to where it was the week before we were about to go. We're packing, we're excited. It's 1 week till we're there. And again, I get a call from my best friend Sarah, and she says, have you checked your email? And I said, no. And I could tell something was wrong, and I checked, and all that the message said was, our hearts are breaking again. Because there was a busload of students that were coming back from spring break. About 20 of our students were in that bus. the bus driver fell asleep. The bus rolled. It injured about 15 of our students, broken arms, broken collarbones, broken legs, crushed one of our students' pelvis, almost completely maiming him. It also crushed one of our students' hands, a young girl. She had to get a lot of it amputated, which in Egypt culture, it's kind of like she's unmarriable now. And it killed another senior, Mina, another senior we were close to. This is 2 seniors in the graduating class, and they have a month before graduation. They were about to start their journey, you know? And I'm supposed to go and give a week of prayer, and I was just rocked to my core. Not necessarily blaming God, because in my mind I said, no, I'm good. I trust in you. I trust in your plan. You know, I know that bad things happen, but you're still in control, but that's me. How am I going to go tell those kids this? How am I going to say, oh, it was in God's plan that your 2 friends died? Like, oh, he's a God of love, but yet he kills people that are closest to you, you know? These conflicting messages, they're not Adventists. They don't, you know, the life after death thing, they know from the Bible classes that we teach them. They weren't raised that way. And I'm like, am I supposed to go into a seminar about life after death? Like, what am I supposed to say? This was when I stopped and was like, God, whoa, 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 you're off-roading here, and I don't know if you fell asleep or something, but you're going the wrong way. Like, this is not the plan that I had. You know, I was going to eloquently speak about freedom and the revolution. Like, what are you doing? What path are you taking me on? This makes no sense. Did you fall asleep? And then just this happened and you didn't know it? Like, why do I have to go and confront my friends and try to preach to them? Like, I just didn't know what to do. So with a heavy heart, we replanned, we restretched, we opened ourselves up to God, and we planned the best we could. And we got to Egypt, and I stepped off the plane. Wasn't really sure what to expect, but the principal had come to pick us up. And I still can remember, he had running over to us in the airport and just grabbing all 3 of us and pulling us into his arms and just sobbing. Just sobbing. And like, that's not okay to do, first of all, for a man to sob in public or for a man to hug women in public. And he didn't care because he needed us. He needed that support. He needed to see someone that was there for him. And we're still nervous, but you know, we went home, we snuck in Friday night so none of the students saw us. And Saturday morning we woke up, still not sure how they're going to react to things. We snuck across the campus while they were all in the church, and we stood in the room that was connecting to the stage. And we had it planned out, so as the song service stopped, there was a pause, and Pastor Tom, I don't remember the exact words, it's something like, we have something for you. And then it was just silent. And we had our guitars, and we started playing their favorite song, which is Every Move I Make. We started strumming, and we started singing, and you could hear a rustle in the chapel. And we walked to the doors onto the stage, and to see these just like downcast, like just defeated expressions, like look up and like still hurting, but just burst into tears or burst into song and just start jumping and start clapping, and like for them to know that they weren't forgotten. We hadn't told them, they didn't know we were coming, and that's when I knew, like, it didn't matter what I had to say. Like, I'm not going to go talk about life after death and this and that. I don't need to preach to them. All I needed was God knew that he needed a friendly face that would be supportive. That was it. He didn't need me to speak a single word. We could have gone and not even given a week of prayer, and we would have fulfilled our purpose. And what's so cool is that he had that plan in place before Na had died, before Mina died, before when we were SMs, I was planning to go. Like, we had already were planning to go, and God knew, I'll just show you the direct steps in front of you, and don't worry about the rest. You'll get there, and your purpose is to love and show them support. And that's it. That's what I want for you, you know? And I just thought it was so cool that I didn't need to worry about my path, but I did. You know, I stressed about it, but I could have sat back and basked in God's glory and just said, I know it will turn out, and enjoyed it, you know? And it was so cool. It was so cool. And, you know, throughout the Bible, it speaks again and again and again of of things like this. I want to draw your mind to the story of Joseph. We all know Joseph, okay? We know the story through and through and through. But I actually want to tell you guys one of my favorite parts in the story, which might be surprising to some of you. But my favorite part in the story is when he's in jail. I know, weird, right? You're like, when he stands up to Potiphar's wife, when he becomes the first or second in command. No, my favorite part in the story is when he was in jail. Let me tell you why. In chapter 40, it says that he was there for some time. So he was there for a while. Then the cupbearer and the baker comes and they do their whole thing. Then in chapter 41, it says 2 years later, Pharaoh had a dream. So he was there for a while, then he had his whole interaction, then he was there for 2 years. Like, how cool was it that Joseph went into the situation, he's there for 2 years, chilling, he could have kicked back, kicked God to the curb and said, this is so below me. I was leading Potiphar's house, why would you ask me to lead a prison? Why would you ask me to basically be in charge of murderers and thieves when I was in charge of Potiphar's possessions? But he said he had a good attitude, he worked hard, he was there, he took what God had given him. And in the waiting time was right where he needed to be. Let me say that again, I want you guys to hear that. While he was waiting, that was right where God needed him to be. So if you think about that, that is how he got to the pinnacle, is through this waiting. I don't know what you guys have after graduation. We're leaving here. Some of you might go straight into a job. So cool. That means you're in a different part in the journey. You're in the second in command, or maybe like the Potiphar's household kind of a part of the story. Maybe you don't have a job. Then you're right where God wants you to be. Now, that does not mean give up and sit back and put your feet up and kick God to the curb because he's not giving you a job. No, have a good attitude about it. Work with what you have, just like Joseph did. Put your all into it, and that's great. And then God will show you the steps when they come, I just think that that's really cool. And the same thing with maybe you're going to grad school. Sweet, that's where you need to be. Maybe you're single. Sweet, that's where you need to be. Maybe you're engaged. Awesome, that's where you need to be, right? It's all about the journey, and it's all about kicking back and not being a backseat driver. Not telling God he's taken the wrong way, or taken the wrong road, or he fell asleep, or whatever else it might be, right? Ephesians 3:20. Ephesians 3:20. Some of you guys might know it. Let me find it here. Ephesians 3:20. It says, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. So I want to bring some things to light. It says that God is able to do, what word was that? Let me hear, was it? Immeasurably, more than we ask or imagine. Okay, think about that for just a second. How cool is that? If we were given, let's say, God was all of a sudden like, Jessica, you have complete power to choose the course of your life. Choose the job you want, choose the husband you want, choose the place you want to live. If we just depended on him instead, he would be able to do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine. So even if we had control, why would we want it? Because he's going to do better than we can imagine. And so, if we're completely trusting, and in Ellen White, there's a quote from, she was the original writer, but then The Messiah was a book that was rewritten from her writings. Anyways, from Messiah, page 168, my favorite quote, it says, God never allows things to happen to his children that they would not choose for themselves if they knew the end from the beginning and could understand their part in his plan. Wow. Okay, one more time. I want you guys to hear that. God never allows things to happen to his children that they would not choose for themselves if they knew the end from the beginning and could understand their part in his plan. How cool. that at the end of our life, when everything actually makes sense and God does show us the whole path, we're like, oh, yep, I would have, oh, yep. Oh, that sucked, but yeah, I would have done that anyway. Okay, yep. Like, you know, like, that's just so cool that he's able to do that for us. And another thing is John 14:14, and I do want to point this out. John 14:14 talks about, and there's actually verse after verse that state this type of thing. It says, you may ask for anything in my name and I will do it. And you've heard verses like this. God, ask for the desires of your heart and blah, blah, blah. Ask for anything in my name and I will surely give it to you. I want to point this out. We can ask for something, right? Like I said, if you're given control, you can ask for what you want. You can ask for a job. You can ask for a husband. You can ask for an internship. Ask for whatever you want. But it says, in my name, I will do it. I was kind of before, like, that doesn't make sense. Like, if he has a better plan, but then if I ask for it, he's going to give it to me. How does this work? I actually looked it up in a concordance, and the word in my name actually can be directly translated into for my glory or for my service. So you can ask for anything for my glory, and I will give it to you. Now that puts a different spin on things, because here's the thing. If you're asking for his glory, that means he may put you in a prison for 2 years. Hopefully not literally, but you guys understand. He may put you in waiting, doing nothing for 2 years because it's for his glory. Lazarus died. Okay? They did not understand why he died, and Jesus said, don't worry, it's for my glory. It's because he was asking to glorify God. Therefore, that was the best possible path that he could take. Now, I'm not saying, hopefully that's not a part of your path anytime soon, but God does understand, right? So if you can ask for anything in his name, anything for his glory, it puts a whole new spin on life in general. And I think that's something that's important for us to remember is that he'll give us the lamp to our feet, sit back and enjoy the ride, because when you're giving it to him, it doesn't matter what happens, it's for his glory. One last story. It was actually the story comes from World War II, and a plane was flying over the Pacific, and in the middle of their journey, they ran out of aviation fuel. They crash landed onto an island. Their plane was okay, but they have absolutely no fuel. Now, if you remember, Japanese were inhabiting a lot of the different islands there, so they have no clue what's on this island. The men are scared out of their wits. They're just like, this could be inhabited by Japanese, we could get taken into custody, we might be here for the rest of our lives, we might die, oh my goodness, what's going on? But there was one man who kept his composure, and that was the chaplain. He called all the men together, he had a prayer, and he was like, God, I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why this is part of our journey, but it is. Take charge. We give you complete control. We give it to you. And then they all went to bed. And Chaplain slept soundly because he was trusting. And so the next morning was actually really cool as they woke up to the sound of a barrel that had been washed onto shore. So they ran down, and the barrel was full of not just any kind of gasoline, diesel, it was full of aviation fluid. The exact kind they needed for their plane. Okay, so that in itself is a really cool story. Like it talks about how the men celebrated, the chaplain praised God, they put it in their plane, they taxied down the island, and they were on their way back home. And like that's really cool. But I actually want to tell you guys the other half of the story, which is the one that gives me goosebumps and smacks me in the face and says, trust. That specific barrel actually came from a boat that was in the middle of the Pacific. That while it was sinking, okay, so that's a different story, we don't know why that happened, but that was their story. While it was sinking, they were trying to lighten the load, so they threw off everything they could, including barrels of aviation fluid. Now, that was thousands of miles away from the island. That one barrel of aviation fluid, it had to float thousands of miles. It passed up 10, 12 different islands. It didn't rest on those beaches. And it not only got to that island where the men were waiting, but the very next day after they had prayed for that very thing. So the verse in Isaiah, it says, before they call, I will answer. While they're still speaking, I will already hear it. So before the pastor prayed, before the plane crashed, before the plane actually took off, weeks earlier, the plan had already been put into place to be there exactly when they needed it. And so I want you guys to think back, before you took your first classroom this fall, before you ever took hub editing, web design, before you even came to Southern, there was something in place. You won't know about it until God puts it directly in front of you. He's not going to let you see it. He wants you to turn to Him. You might wait, like Joseph did. You might have to kick back and say, I'm going to do the best with what I have, and that's what I'm given. You may be on the pinnacle. You may get a job already. I don't know what it is, but before you even pray for God to give you something, He's already done it. That does not negate the fact that you need to pray, because it's in the praying that you fully see where God leads, right? And so go before God, trust Him with all your heart, don't lean on your own understanding, and know that wherever you go from next weekend, once you graduate, it doesn't matter. Like, if you're doing your best, if you're praying to be used, if you're doing it for His glory, it will be for His glory. You will be used. And so that's something that all of us can think about. It doesn't matter if you're staying here at Southern, it doesn't matter if you're a professor here at Southern, it doesn't matter if you're going to grad school, internship, graduating, don't know what in the world you're going to do. All of them, it means the exact same thing. Go ahead, go in God's grace, enjoy the ride. Don't be a backseat driver. Because God will take you on a wild ride if you're asking Him to. So now go out and dive headlong into your brand new semester. Whatever it looks like for you, go with God, enjoy the ride. Bow your heads and have a prayer. God, I'm asking you to be with us. We forget, I forget. We're humans, we're dumb sometimes. But God, help us to sit back. Help us to let you be the driver. Take us wherever you want us to go, and help us not to complain or to talk about it. Like, we're yours, and we're ready for the journey. We're ready to make a difference in this world. We're graduating. We're young. We have energy. Please send us out. Send us out wherever we're going to make the biggest impact, because we know that you've had that story written before we even knew it. And we're just ready to follow. Thank you for being here with us. Continue to drive us wherever you want us to go. Amen.